We have a massive update regarding Mitch Marner's future in Toronto as a new report has revealed the Toronto Maple Leafs general manager's plan if they decide to trade Mitch Marner and what it could mean for his future going forward as some details regarding his no move clause have been revealed. So we're going to break all that down in this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the large percentage who are not subscribed, you're going to want to make sure to hit that button if you don't want to miss daily Leafs videos. Now, Darius, a lot to go over today. Some breaking news actually regarding Mitch Marner and his no move clause. And some details about his future could be revealed in the sense that what Mitch Marner decides to do with his no move clause greatly impacts what the Leafs' rest of the season is. So without further ado, no, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into it, Darius. So this came out saying the Leafs will not ask Mitch Marner to waive his no movement clause until a potential offer comes in that they like. This is from Steve Simmons. Now, Darius, I just want to get your thoughts on this. This is pretty interesting. We've been talking this whole time about will Mitch Marner waive his no move clause? Will he do this? Will he do that? The Leafs are not even going to ask him about waiving his no move clause unless an offer comes in that they like from a specific team. And this is probably the smartest way to go about it. You don't want to keep throwing offers at Mitch Marner, giving him a bunch of different teams. If you get an offer you like, which is probably going to be very hard to do anyway, then you can discuss with Mitch Marner, okay, this makes sense for both of us. It makes sense. It is what it is. And I think this lends some credence to the fact that I would not be surprised if Mitch Marner does end up getting traded.
So first of all, this report that just came out is from Steve Simmons. So we take this with a grain of salt for sure. But it is a pretty big bomb drop of news here. And I mean, this is the way, to me, at least personally, this is the way you should go about doing it. I don't think you go to Mitch Marner and you say, waive your no trade clause, and then we'll find you a trade. Because then we get a Jacob Markstrom situation where now he's very upset at the organization in the Calgary Flames and wants to leave, right? Because he did waive his no movement clause and he didn't end up getting traded. So I think this is absolutely the way you go about it, right? If somebody comes to you with a proposition for Mitch Marner, then you consider it. If you like the trade, then you go to Marner and ask if he would waive for that specific team. This is the way I think they should do it. I'm all for this route. I think the Leafs of maybe the Leafs in the past, before Brendan Shanahan got there and kind of cleaned things up in that way, they might have done things differently. But I think the Leafs now like to handle business a little bit more quiet to a degree, and smarter in this way, right? Why would he's still a part of the team. He still has to play out the year if they don't find a trade. He's still going to be on the squad. You don't need this to be a distraction, so don't make him and his camp upset in that way before you can do anything. So I think this is the way you do it. You have to see what's going on out there, whether you're feeling it out or teams are coming to you with offers, and then you move forward and you ask him if you would waive for that specific team.
Yeah, and we look at, again, this whole situation, or this whole debacle has been very interesting. A few days ago, that big report, Darius, that came out regarding Darren Ferris and how the Leafs are going to try to play, or Mitch Marner, sorry, is going to try to play it out and then become an unrestricted free agent for the Leafs. We have some info here from his agent. So there's also comments from Marner's agent, Darren Ferris, again, which this was from a few days ago, but who made it clear that the client intends to play out his contract in Toronto. And that's what makes this very interesting, is that there's going to be a lot of back and forth if the Leafs get an offer they like. Let's say it's with the Calgary Flames or with a potential team that, could work for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then they bring it up to Mitch Marner, and Mitch Marner says, hey, no. That gets leaked out into the media, and then Mitch Marner's... And I mean, at this point, Mitch Marner's kind of... he's not a villain in Toronto, but fans are starting to turn on him a little bit. They turned on him a few days ago when his agent came out and said, hey, we're going to run it out. We're going to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season and then become a UFA and maybe re-sign. Like, he's not the most liked guy right now in Toronto Maple Leaf land, so I think this makes total sense. And I'm going to dive into this quickly here. This is from, again, Steve Simmons. It's one of those, if one of those offers meets their needs, then and only then will they involve Marner in the process and try to convince him why it's best to look in his best interest to look elsewhere and obviously get a new change of scenery. So that's the exact quote from Steve Simmons. Like you mentioned, take it with a grain of salt. It is Steve Simmons, though. I think in this case, I believe him. It makes a lot of sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs to do this. Like, this isn't some crazy, new revelation in science about what you should do. I think this makes the most sense for Brad Living and the team, because if you keep just going up to him with different offers, it's going to be very strange. And quite frankly, I'm not sure there's that many offers the Leafs are seriously going to consider anyway from a lot of these teams. So limiting it is probably the best way anyway.
Yeah, I agree with this approach 100%. Like I said, if you came to Mitch Marner right now and said, we want to trade you and waive your no movement clause, and he says, well, where am I going? Right? Well, we don't know. We haven't gotten into that yet. It doesn't make any sense, right? So I think that's the way to go. Just feel it out, see what's out there. Maybe you kick some rocks or some tires, or maybe another team's coming to you with offers. Just see what's out there and what's available for him. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to make him, disgruntled, because he does have to finish the year if they don't find a suitable trade partner for him, right? He will have to come back and play for the team. And you can't have this be a distraction. Like I said, it cannot be a distraction heading into training camp. If they come into training camp and Mitch Marner's still on the team, questions about a trade or a contract, whatever, they got to figure it out. This cannot be a distraction for the rest of the team because it will be a disaster. So I do think they end up finding a trade partner for him. I do, because I think that's the most logical way out of this. Not that logic wins in hockey very often, but I do think that ends up happening. But going this route is the right way to go, right? You find the suitable trade partner first, then you ask the player, would you be okay waiving to go to that place?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And a couple other things to go over. And if you look back and again, we can read between the lines a lot now as the offseason continues to progress, as there's been a lot of comments from Treliving, from even, Keith Pelly about what his plan is regarding, his impact in the Leafs. But it's clear Treliving wants to address issues he's identified with the club after one season at the helm as GM. Getting a solid return from an elite point producer alone is difficult enough, but convincing him to willingly go is a next level challenge that could be scrutinized for some time yet. And again, that's the biggest thing. Like, this is nightmare material if you're actually Brad Treliving, because he needs to try to not only get a good package that won't, hinder his team going forward, or even just make the fans super upset. Not that they actually care about what the fans really think, but not only that, Mitch Marner has the waive his no move clause, and he has to try to convince him elsewhere. So there's just a lot that goes into this, and that's why I think this is going to be a very long, convoluted process that probably doesn't wrap itself up until, like you mentioned, at least early July, but probably a bit later there. And Darius, we bring this up all the time. Like, he's a very good player, and as much as other teams the Leafs fan base might be, upset with him and hate on him, other teams value this guy a lot, even if he doesn't produce in the playoffs to the most potential that he has. He helps the teams get into the playoffs. And if a team is on the edge of the playoffs or even on the brink of contending, Mitch Marner would be that guy. And we can see, and we can rewind back to the comment by Brad Treliving, Mitch controls a lot of this whole thing. If there's a way to make our team better, we're going to do it. But we're certainly not going to make a trade just so that we can pound our chest and say, look, we're different. And that's exactly it. That was a week or so ago. And it makes sense why this report comes out now. Unless they see a trade they like, there's no point in discussing a no move clause with Mitch Marner.
No, it doesn't really make sense. And like we've talked about it a lot, and I've said it a lot, like you're probably not going to win 1-for-1 ratio this trade for Mitch Marner. You're probably not going to, but it's about making the team better and freeing up that salary. We've talked about it ad nauseum over the last couple of weeks. So that is really what it's about. So if there's something that's good enough for the Leafs, I'm sure they're going to try and make it work. But I think Mitch Marner has to make it work with the Leafs as well. He has to kind of work with them, right? And maybe not overstay his welcome in a way, because the temperature is hot amongst the fan base right now. Something needs to happen with this team. We've been singling out Mitch Marner just because it makes the most sense to move on from him based on his contract, how much he makes, and where it is. With only 1 year left. Yeah. So he is a great player. He is an absolute great player. He's a hot commodity. A lot of teams would like this player. There's a lot of teams on the outside looking in of the playoffs that would need a guy like this that would put them into the playoffs. So lots of, some Leaf fans are undervaluing Mitch Marner a lot right now. He's worth a lot out there. So we'll just have to see what happens. But it's going to be very interesting until July. There's a lot of posturing going on between both parties in the media.
And it'll be very interesting to see what the ultimate return is if they end up trading for him. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on all this. And thank you guys for watching.